So I'm going to go ahead and work on the first aid now. The deliverable is 3 different first aid techniques out of your kit. I have 3 completely separate cotton balls. One of them is a diluted fix and wax. One of them is a plantain jewel weed herbal salve that I make for bug bites or poison ivy or anything like that. And the last one is a foot lube for preventing blisters and stuff. I use that when I'm hiking a lot. So I've got my herbal itch cream. This is impregnated into the cotton ball, and it's real simple. You know, if this was poison ivy or a bug bite or whatever, I can just topically apply it. It is winter right now. I do get poison ivy pretty bad, and you can still get it this time of year. I'm definitely a fact with that. The fix and wax, it's kind of along the same lines. I kind of cut my thumb a little bit with that saw as I was getting it out of the case, getting the tape off. I'm going to use a little bit of the fix and wax just to put on that abrasion. And then actually for a bandage, I'm going to be using the 24-inch Gorilla Tape. So I'm just going to put it real quick, wrap around it. And we're good to go. So if this was a bleeder, I would put pressure on it with a, you know, maybe a piece of my t-shirt or one of these cotton balls or something. But in the case that I've got, it's really just an abrasion. Also, I can take my Gorilla Tape make a couple slices, and make a butterfly bandage. So if I had a bad cut on my arm, I'm going to stretch and stretch, and then even though this Gorilla Tape's used, it was wrapped around my saw blade, I've still got tension, and it's going to hold the skin together until I can get to proper medical care. But duct tape butterfly bandage like this is a primos way to stop a bleed. So here is, I don't remember what this is, like 12 feet of artificial sinew, I think, wrapped around 2 latex slingshot bands. Okay, so I've still got all my cordage here, but what I am going to do is take one of my TheraBand Gold slingshot bands, and I'm going to be able to make a tourniquet with this. So you do want to put the tourniquet above the joint, and real quickly, no windlass required, I've got a tourniquet. Now this would work on my leg. This is like a 10-inch band, and you know, millions of drug users can't be wrong. So this is a premium tourniquet. You can see my veins are starting to bulge out already. There we go. Okay, so medical's done. Alright, so I'm moving on to some traps now. I just cut a small sapling, cut maybe a 9-inch piece, chamfered one in and cut a 7-notch. I did all that and then forgot to hit record, so whatever. The next piece I'm going to take is, I'm going to make this about 10 inches long, so I'm just using my fingers here, and okay, now I'm going to make another 7-notch right about here. So I'm going to crown this off. Let's see here. This is going to sit here. This one's going to sit here. So you want this down piece at about a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to make a chiseled point right about where my thumb is. I'm just going to cut it off first. Okay. And it's going to sit in this direction, so this bottom piece has to get chiseled off. This sits like this. And here. And right here is going to be another 7-notch. So now, by all rights, this is a functional figure 4 right now. I usually square this front edge on the upright. It usually makes it work a little bit better. So I'm going to flatten this, roll it, flatten that. Okay, there is a figure 4 deadfall trap. As long as I've got a weight on top of it, that's going to simulate the deadfall. This is the bait stick. Any little slight touch of the deadfall, or of the trigger stick, and the deadfall falls. So this is one completed figure 4. Alright, so the next trap we're going to do is going to be a split stick. So I just, you know, whatever, cut off about a hand span here. I'm going to go ahead and make a plunge cut. About as deep as I can go. And then I'm going to go on the exact opposite side, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches down. Make another plunge cut. Now, if everything's good, which it rarely is, I'm going to try to break the stick, and I got a little more aggressive with it, but this is actually still going to work for me. So you see the concept here now. I'm going to clean this edge off. Okay, so here's the two parts of the split stick. This point is going to be baited. And basically the bait's going to be wedged into the stick itself. That little gap there, it's a sensitive little sucker. So when the animal comes up and hits at the bait, that triggers the trap. So these are pretty easy to make, pretty fiddly, but it's nothing you can't handle. So there's the split stick. So the next one's going to start out very similar to a split stick. Only difference is I'm going to square it off first. And I'm going to plunge cut, come down. Alright, so I got a plunge cut going on, and then there's another plunge cut right here. And then I'm going to try to break it just like this. Okay, so I got a long stick here. This is going to be the bait stick essentially, so I'm just going to cut it off. Okay, so I think I'll put it at this end. So right here I'm going to just make a square notch. So I'm going to make a plunge cut. And I want the square notch to be the same width as my stick. Okay, so I just made a little baby square notch. Looks like a small version of the square notch I made right here. And this is the Siberian Trap. This is the one from Happy People. So what this is a split stick with that square notch holds it together. So whenever this gets hit, the stick breaks in half. So here it is again. So put the split stick together. The square notch is cut to fit this size stick. And see how that holds together. Super simple trap. And baited down here. It's got all kinds of leverage, and when an animal touches it, falls off. Alright, so I've got plenty of firewood just around my area. I'm not real worried about gathering up wood ahead of time. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. So my next focus is going to be on, like I said, the mat to get me up out of the mud. So I am going to go ahead and make a wilderness loom. I've got one piece of bank line, and I got one piece of sinew, just because that's all I got left. I got 2 stakes here. I'm going to stick them into the ground. Maybe shoulder width apart, maybe a little closer. Alright, so the head of this loom is behind me here. And I'm just going to take one strand of bank line, one strand of sinew, and nothing fancy, just tie it on. Okay, so this is going to work. Alright, so that's the basic principle of the loom. I'm running out of daylight, so I can't explain everything on the fly here. I'll have to do a separate video on that if needed. But I would prefer full length. This is torso length. Cordage was a limiting factor. Time is a big time limiting factor. So I'm just going to cut these sticks off, tie it up, and I think while I'm out here I'm going to try to get some food for the evening. So having the mat tied up like this makes it a hell of a lot easier than just carrying handfuls of weeds into the woods. This is not quite as thick as I want, not quite as long as I want, but it's the best I got. So come sunset here in another hour and 10 minutes, I'm going to be real thankful I got this. Let's head over here and see if I can find some food real quick. So this is a real shit time of year to try to forage for food. They're still ice fishing 20 miles north of here. So the mud is absolutely frozen. I planned on coming down in here to the water's edge. No go for fish yet. Maybe another month, and that's probably still too early. But I planned on pulling up some cattail roots and roasting them. And like I said, it's absolutely frozen solid, the mud. I can't even get my fingers down into there. Primitive like this, I'm really kind of out of options. If I had a shovel or something, maybe I could give it a go. On the bigger lake up north, ice fishing is still, it's right on the waning points right now. I think guys were just stuck out on the ice last week west of here. But they're pulling perch and walleye up through the ice, but these small farm ponds like this, the bluegill and bass, they're not biting right now. Yeah, that's disappointing. I have, there's a week's worth of food out here, easy. In a week's time, I could have primitive trap line going, at least micro trapping, where I'm pulling possibly squirrels, but more likely mice or chipmunks, something like that, small birds. But March is a bad time. Not a lot going on in March. Oh well, I'm going to take my mat, head back to my shelter, get a fire going. The wind's starting to whip up now, and temperature's dropping fast, and so is the sun. So it's almost dark right now. I got my mat in. I'm just going to unroll it here. I'm freaking exhausted. It was a long day. I'm going to gather enough firewood for probably 3 fires, I'd say. To be honest, as soon as the sun sets here, I'm going to light a fire and get all comfortable, take my contacts out, and then I plan on going to bed. I've got nothing to cook. If I was going to roast those cattail roots, you know, that might be another story. I got some more ditch water to drink. But other than that, there is nothing left to do. I got all my deliverables done. You know, I had grand scheme plans that I was going to do all this stuff. When it comes right down to it, when you're on limited gear like this, you just kind of get by. This shelter's probably overkill. In this weather, with the gear I walked out with, I could have gathered a great big pile of firewood and leaned next to this tree and been just fine. We had a little bit of rain. I didn't bring any rain gear with me. Just worked right through it. It was really no big deal. But if it does rain tonight, I will be happy that I took the time to make a bark shelter like this. That's going to be way better than leaves. I would need, like, you know, elbow deep leaves, and I just don't have that. It's not here to get. So this material was going to be my first thought. but again, everything's just wet and tramped down. Spring's coming, and so all the dead stuff from last year is just barely holding on. I'm going to unroll my mat after I get some firewood set. I'm going to leave everything tucked up tight. That way I don't tromp on it and don't mat it down. I've got all my kit. It's on my bandana. It's waiting. It's out of the way. I'm not going to step on it. I'm not going to tromp on it. I have not put on my layers yet. They're in standby also, just kind of waiting. There's other stuff I could do, I suppose, but it is what it is. Once I get settled in, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm cold, I'll build a fire. You know, I've still got matches. I've got a bird's nest sitting behind me here for an emergency, but I've got another one right here. I'll just pull out a little bit of my bedding, wad it up, hit it with a ferro rod or strike a match, and warm up real quick. That would be the purpose of the firewood for 3 fires. So my initial fire, my middle of the night, I'm cold, and then morning. Once morning hits, I don't really anticipate hanging out here anymore. Okay, time to get some wood. Not too bad. Not a sort of perfect here for anything, but this will work. And it's down past my knees. Actually, it's pretty comfortable. So if you work hard enough during the day, that makes your bed softer at night. That's one way to look at it. I've got a pretty good stack of wood right here beside the tripod, and there's a couple tree tops that I pulled over. It's getting to be where a lot of the smaller branches and stuff are hitting me in the face. I'm starting to lose my lose vision a little bit. I'm going to have some more creek water, and I'll get the fire lit before dark. I'm pushing, holding back a little bit. I want to conserve that wood as long as I can. I'm still hot from exertion, from gathering wood and making my bed and making my shelter and doing all the projects. So I don't want to wait until it's too late to light a fire at night. So that's one of the big things that I don't have with me is a flashlight. You can get by just fine without it, but boy is it sure handy, especially in the winter time. You know, right now we just had daylight savings, so it's darker later. But when you've got those long dark nights and no flashlight, you're really just married to the fire. You're not getting up, you're not going anywhere. 2 steps outside of the light ring and you're stumbling over stuff, and that's how people get hurt. Everything's smoky, kind of hard to light. It doesn't help that it rained today while I was out here. Looks like I've got a better base now, so I'm just going to keep adding wood, keeping this stuff dried out. Like I said, once I get full dark, once I finish, that's my second bag of water over there. Once I finish that, I'm probably just going to pull my contacts out and go to bed. Still not cold at all. This fire is just for comfort and the fact that I lit it before it got pitch dark. I wouldn't want to be scrambling around here, especially out of an Altoid's tent. It's not like I got my normal kit with me where I know where everything is. soon as this burns down, I might throw some of the bigger pieces on and wool up and just kind of curl up, get some sleep. Definitely tired. It is not worth at all worrying about keeping the fire going all night. You know, I've got a ferro rod and I'm sleeping on a freaking bird's nest. So whenever the chill hits me, or in the morning or whatever, I can get a fire going relatively quickly. Right over, I've got a big tree. At the base of that tree is all my equipment. That way it's not mixed in here anyway. But other than that, the work's all done. This is the enjoyment part. Again, I thought about burning bowls and all that kind of stuff, but man, freaking tired. It was all day, worked all night, and then worked all day getting the projects done, getting the shelter up. Time to kick back and enjoy the fire. Remember why I do all this stuff. So it's breaking morning right now. I did sleep through the night decent. Wasn't too cold actually last night, but the fire feels good. My mattress was a little thin. I knew that going into it. Right this second I got it kind of balled up into a sitting pad. A lot of walking through here where I was setting up and building everything, and it's kind of muddy right here. This whole area gets muddy real quick. Where the bed was, you know, no real issues. Don't know exactly what time it is. Don't know exactly what the temperature is. My phone died, but it wasn't too bad. The fire is comforting though. I let it go. I slept pretty sound through the night. Got up, got the camera up, and just lit a match, a little bit of my mattress, and got a fire going this morning. It was completely stone dead when I got up. So if this was stretched into a longer term deal, I would work on my mattress. Obviously, you're spending a lot of time on it. I would probably double or triple the mattress size that I've got right here, which that's just time. I've got the resources to do it. I was running out of daylight. There's tons of firewood around here. I'm not real concerned about that. The water is available. It does taste awful. I think I would make the trip over for some pines, and even if I used my tent itself, just make some pine needle tea just to flavor it. Even if I made a strong batch of tea and added it to the whole bag, would probably be the smartest thing to do. As far as food, maybe attack those cattail roots with maybe a hardwood digging stick or something, but man, that's a tough go. I think I would get, I don't know, maybe 10 traps up today. I mean, you saw I made 3 traps in just a few minutes, you know, maybe 10-15 minutes or so. I knew going into this that I would be up and out in the morning early, so I really wasn't super concerned with setting traps all over, and like I said, I was just really pushing for time. But that would be my main thing today, is try to establish some kind of trap line. My slingshot, I never did put it together. If I start going into food mode, I guess I should have that slingshot to get put together real quick. Didn't use my awl. I found a piece of bark that was it was in the water actually, and it was pretty pliable. And I pulled out enough where it looked to me like I could make a knife sheath with it. Coiled it up and set it back in the water. I intended to use the awl to try to make a bark sheath. Didn't happen. But that would probably be, today would be more make traps, arts and crafts day.
that kind of thing.
Alright, so as soon as the fire dies, I'm out of here. This has been enough fun for one evening. This is good to do because you can get all smitten in looking at a kit and playing with it a little bit. Seeing how it actually works when you need to make it work is a whole different ball game. So even though my Altoid's kit is pretty solid, I still think so. You know, as I was using this little knife, which this ain't bad, but I got overconfident in it. I was batoning it. You can see how loose the blade is. If this was a second day of this, I would recover the cordage and make another handle and just roll with it. I attempted that duct tape pine pitch, or modern pine pitch, and it did work. I did test it out at the house. I thought I was doing something unique, and it did hold, but it didn't hold for long. As soon as I started getting a little happy and batoning the back of it, I could feel it give, and then once the inletting on this soft wood starts to break, not so much. So there were times I had to baton this thing, but I was probably getting a little too excessive with it. My saw blade, again, that was an older blade. I've had it in and out of that can numerous times, trying to learn how to do it, and then packing and repacking a kit. That blade looked like a bacon. It was all wobbly and wavy, and I had issues with it. Small saw logs were fine, but when I went into the bigger stuff like you could do with a buck saw, it just didn't perform right, and that was the blade, I believe. I don't know if a newer blade, I don't know how many times I would be able to put one in and out of there, but I still think in an emergency kit like that, that saw blade is awesome. Most of this, it's pretty clean. They're pretty much sawed ends. I would go to a downed tree and find a 2-inch diameter limb or something and make a saw cut, drag it back over here, and then just work the top through and make it fit. You could have broke limbs off. It wouldn't have looked quite the same, but it would have been as functional. So you didn't gain a whole lot if you didn't have the buck saw, but it was nice. I'm not going to complain a bit about it, even though it did give me fits. Ferro rod's awesome. It's hard to use a little tiny ferro rod like that, but what are you going to do? It's got to fit in this little tin. The matches, those were like Coglin, I think, waterproof matches. I wish I would have repacked the kit with those stormproofs. Stormproof matches are way better. I had a couple of them snap on me, so I wouldn't want to go down to just 1 or 2 matches, but the storm matches or the UCO storm matches are way better, not even close. Cordage, I wish I had more cordage. It's really all I could fit in there. I'm wearing muck boots. I thought about wearing other shoes just so I could pull the paracord strands out, but that's kind of cheating in my opinion. If I had them on anyway, I would have utilized them, but just to wear different kind of shoes so I could use the laces is kind of pointless to me. I'm looking at my kit over here, seeing what I used and didn't use. Didn't use the slingshot, didn't use the nail. The sinew was going to be for fish hooks. I ended up using a large portion of it for the mattress. Didn't use the fish hooks at all. Fish aren't necessarily going to be biting this time of year around here, but I could have hooked or attempted to hook like some mammals. I probably could have got a possum or something with the right bait. Coon or a possum, I could have hooked it. I don't have a steel leader, so it would have been an emergency thing. It would have been a hit or miss if I would have got it. Probably would have lost the animal, so it's best I didn't. The tin itself was awesome. You know, you need to have that tin. I was able to make char in it, which helped my fire out. The plastic bag, it worked. You know, at least I wasn't out here drinking out of a little tiny sandwich bag or something. But anytime you're drinking out of a plastic bag like that, it sucks. Those aqua tablets are freaking awesome. That water was freaking awful, but at least I didn't have to screw around boiling that little tin and dumping it in my bag. that would have taken all night. So other than that, in a tent like that, if you've got a fire, you've got a way to make a shelter, and got a way to purify water, and then cordage should pretty much be the rest of it. All the other stuff was, a lot of it's fluff. A lot of it I didn't use in this situation just because it's just an overnighter. It's not the real deal. But it all fit in there, and yeah, I guess it's good to have. It didn't take up a ton of space that I could have filled with bank line. I mean, if I just had the saw, maybe I could have got maybe 25 extra feet in there, so 50 feet total, which would have been nice. But it's a way more versatile kit, especially the, I didn't use the slingshot bands to make a slingshot, but I did use them for a tourniquet, I guess. The duct tape, I tried to soften it a little bit with my fingerprint so it would come off easier, and it still fought me. But you know, for the most part, everything worked out. Made it through the evening. I could have just struck a ferro rod, made a fire, and leaned against the tree. We all know that. But it's supposed to rain today, and I could curl back and circle the wagons and head under this shelter and sit out the evening if I had to in a rainstorm. Okay, until next time, this has been Jamie Boggs with Burning River Bushcraft. See you soon.